Hello, and welcome to our overview of the upcoming work program for the BRTB. I'm Monica Haynes-Benketta, the Public Involvement Coordinator at the Baltimore Metropolitan Council. I'm joined today by Liz Kuntz, Director of External Relations, and Regina Aris, Assistant Director for Transportation Planning.
To begin, I will share a quick overview of the Baltimore Metropolitan Council. The BMC is the Regional Council of Governments for the Baltimore metropolitan area. Key areas of work are transportation planning, environmental coordination, community planning, and cooperative purchasing. BMC is the host agency for the Baltimore Regional Transportation Board, and BMC provides staff support for the Transportation Board.
The Transportation Board is the federally established metropolitan planning organization for the region. The BRTB is made up of the same jurisdictions that are on the BMC, plus the city of Annapolis. Also on the BRTB are several state agencies: Maryland Department of Transportation, Maryland Department of Planning, and the Maryland Department of the Environment. The final member is a local transit provider, which is currently Annapolis Transit.
Let's turn now to what this comment period is about. It is to update the year 2 budget and identify the addition of several focus areas. In the next 15 minutes, we are going to give you a short overview of the budget and focus areas and why you should consider reviewing the material.
The U.S. Department of Transportation has a formal name for this, the Unified Planning Work Program. Of particular interest are those projects funded with Federal Highway Administration and Federal Transit Administration dollars. Those two federal agencies provide funding assistance to help urbanized areas plan for the development, improvement, and effective management of their multimodal transportation system. For simplicity, we call the Unified Planning Work Program a work program. It provides a description of the planning priorities and activities that the Transportation Board wants to carry out within the Baltimore region. We are in year 2 of a 2-year work program. What we are doing is refreshing the budget for ongoing staff tasks, and if funding is available, and it is, we identify new focus areas that consultants will support.
The work program supports efforts to gather data about the region's transportation system, identify the needs of transportation system users, develop a range of transportation project concepts with the goal of creating communities that are safe, accessible, walkable, bikeable, and resilient.
Regina, what can you tell us about the budget and what it will be used for?
There is more detailed information in Appendix A of the work program that begins on page 13. Here, there is 4 budget tables that identify the planning topics, the source of money, and the use of money. As you can see on this chart, the bulk of the money goes to BMC staff to perform ongoing planning work. Another portion of money goes to consultants that help staff in areas where we may not have the expertise. There is also funding for local support, and that is where our members help to bring their perspective to the activities that are underway. Of note on this slide, there is a column for contingency funding. That is because the work program is currently based on federal fiscal year 2021 funding levels. It is anticipated that Congress will approve the federal fiscal year 2022 budget in the near future. If and when that happens, there are additional focus areas outlined in Appendix C.
Can you describe what areas the Transportation Board is interested in pursuing this coming year?
I can give a brief description of the 5 key areas that are being focused on. The safe system approach is an effort to reframe transportation policies and priorities, cultures, and coordination to create safe spaces for all road users. The goal is to work with partners to create a culture that places safety first. 30% design is a task to advance planning for a segment of the Patapsco Regional Greenway. That will begin the planning process and identify an alignment for a trail. Skills and technology support. Recently, the Maryland Department of Transportation, Maryland Transit Administration, developed a regional transit plan. For that, a survey was sent to locally operated transit systems to assess areas where they needed help with skills or access to technology. This project will look at providing some of those needs. Electric vehicle charging stations is to develop a guide for our local jurisdictions to assist with locating and establishing new public EV charging stations. Connected and automated vehicles. You've heard of self-driving cars, truck platoons, and robotic delivery vehicles. Well, they're here in a limited way and coming soon, which means we need to develop customized recommendations to prepare for routine use of these vehicles. For example, we will look at items such as lane markings, communications infrastructure, and handling emergency situations.
Thank you for that, Regina. Can you please describe some of the second tier of projects that will move forward once the federal fiscal year 2022 budget is approved by Congress?
Absolutely. These projects are listed in the work program in Appendix C and appear on pages 27 through 39. So access management is where we look at several major arterials. Think Maryland 140, Reisterstown Road, or Maryland 2, Ritchie Highway, where we will go in and carefully look at all of the access points or driveways to address safety concerns between turning vehicles and pedestrians and bicyclists. We've also been asked to look at a regional bike network. While there are a number of trails and on-road bike lanes, the number of people who want to get out and ride has grown much faster. This task will look at existing and soon to be built facilities and then develop a strategy to connect these trails into widespread and connected network. Transportation and land use grants. Currently this spring, we will be offering the first round of funding for these grants to provide short-term technical assistance to local governments to help them implement changes to the built environment that reduce traffic on roads and enable more people to easily walk, bike, and use transit. Growing transit. After a dramatic drop in transit ridership during the pandemic, this task will engage focus groups and study best practices for retaining and gaining regular transit passengers for all public transit services throughout the region. A different type of service, human service transportation. Think of providers who are nonprofits that serve the elderly and disabled, organizations such as Easter Seals or the ARC. There is Federal Transit Administration funding for vehicles and equipment to serve these providers for these valuable populations. Since the funding is limited, we will evaluate the potential for consortium among these providers and opportunities to provide connections or joint capital projects. Equity best practices. We'd like to perform a scan of other states and MPOs to identify policies and practices that have been implemented or plan to be implemented to better define and promote equity for disadvantaged communities. Fares, fees, and fines. Here we want to understand the scale and scope of the economic impact of transportation, fares, fees, and fines on low-income residents in the region. Transit corridor planning. The Maryland Transit Administration identified 30 potential transit corridors in the Central Maryland Regional Transit Plan. They have 2 corridors currently being studied, and BMC is starting a 3rd corridor this spring. This task will allow the BMC to initiate 1 or more additional corridors for the Transportation Board. And finally, local transportation plans. Here we would provide assistance on request to jurisdictions that are preparing their transportation master plans. These plans are part of the comprehensive plans each jurisdiction develops and are due to the Maryland Department of Planning every 10 years. Liz?
Are there any opportunities for the public to get involved in these projects?
That's a great question, Liz. Many of these projects will have opportunities for the public to share feedback, such as through an advisory committee or to comment at public meetings. For example, the 30% design of the Patapsco Regional Greenway segment, or the regional bike network, or the growing transit task. These all have opportunities, for public engagement and public input. These will be announced as the work begins after July 1st.
And then at the beginning of every 2-year work program, the main section of the document is our core work program. These are not covered in year 2. However, if anybody is interested, please go to the link at the bottom of the screen, and it will take you to the first year of our work program. And these activities, which are our core work program, are fully described. Monica?
Thanks, Liz and Regina, for that overview. As part of its public engagement process, the Transportation Board has released this addendum for a 30-day comment period starting February 8th and running through March 10th. On March 23rd, all of the comments will be presented to the BRTB for their consideration. A final draft of the work program will be presented to the BRTB for a vote on April 26th. Once approved, the document is sent to our federal partners, the Federal Highway Administration, the Federal Transit Administration, and the Environmental Protection Agency, for them to review before the start of the fiscal year. Once the Transportation Board receives approval, that will allow the region to begin working on these projects starting July 1st. So to share your thoughts on the draft work program, we've outlined a number of different ways that you can share your comments. You can visit publicinput.com/2023UPWP or 2023 UPWP. You can text the phrase 2023 UPWP to the number 73224. You can call toll-free 855-925-2801, extension 4231, and leave us a voicemail. You can email your thoughts to 2023UPWP@publicinput.com. We're also on Twitter, and you can send us a direct message at Balto MetroCo or at Be More Involved, or use the hashtag BRTB Listens. You can also send us a letter to 1500 Whetstone Way, Suite 300, Baltimore, Maryland 21230. Comments are welcome through March 10th, 2022, and we hope to hear from you. Thanks so much for joining us to learn more about the BRTB's work program and budget.
Thank you.